YouTube, back again. So my name is Will, I'm one half of Performance Tennis Training. As you can see, my audio today is pretty crappy. I've got some basketballs in the area, so if it's a bit loud, I do apologise. So today's video is going to be on the Sampras snap, the forgotten way to serve. So in the 90s, Pete Sampras famously had what we call the Sampras snap, where he would get into a really strong position and snap incredibly hard, that pronated position. But I want to focus more on his hip. So in my last video, I was working on hip rotation and how the power of the hips can be super important. Well, in this case, I'm going to show you one of my clients. He's called Easton. He's about 13, 14, junior varsity player, just kind of like a sophomore now. And if you look at his hips, I'll show you next to me now, he has a big problem where his body is falling forwards. So his hips are actually behind, or they're in front, as his head is in front of his feet. If you look at we'll compare me side by side, take myself off the screen and put Pete and obviously Easton side by side. Pete famously would have his hip way in front of his head. To the point where I come back to the screen now is that if I'm serving, you actually see my head and my back foot in line. It's that really heavy pushed out hip. So I'm trying to push and try and get my head, in line with my back foot. So again, if you look at Easton, see beside me again, he really struggles with the idea of getting when he's transferring forward, he's transferring his weight up tall. So he's moving his shoulders when really he needs to be transferring and moving backwards on the serve. So I'm going to through a few examples. I'm going to try and serve like Pete, which is very hard. For people that are new to the tennis or have not played much before, have heard of Pete Sampras. He is a 7-time Wimbledon champ, 7-time, 6-time, 5-time, whatever it is. He's won maybe 14 majors in the early 2000s and late 90s. Was one of the best players of all time until obviously Rafa and Novak and Federer come along and make things difficult for him. But again, I'm going to show you some examples of what not to do on the serve and what are good examples of a good Pete Sampras-like Sampras snap, which came not from just his pronation, which is snapping your wrist up here. It actually came from his hip. He really leaned back and protruded that left hip out. So we're going to go to the side now and show you some examples of Pete Sampras' serve. This is Pete's serve. Again, from the side, he has the ability to push that hip in front here, trying to push hip out. You see a lot of players, including Easton, which I mentioned before, that really struggle to keep their hip and their body too much in line to the point they're leaning over their front foot. You want to, for one, leaning back is really important because it encourages that transition forward. I see a lot of my players, I see if I can find one in my archives, that they almost land in the same spot they begun at. So they started at, and that's mainly because they don't transfer their weight forwards. Another thing that Pete did really well is he finished that nice high back foot. So again, Pete Sampras' example here, he become really high, lean back to the start, and then transfer his hip first. The Sampras snap came from his hip, remember that. There, bang, and through. He'd really work on snapping his hip back. So if I go from this side now, again, look up close. Hey, look, but you can see it. But there, really leaning back. He'd come really high, famous, there, and he'd there, and through. Bad example, that didn't make hip involved. So then I even did the same thing. It's that, there, hip, and through. That one was wide, but that's what I mean by if you're struggling to get easy power, just take a video of yourself and look at what's going on with your body. If your head and your feet are not in line throughout the swing, you're not having the ability to push forward again. And you need that to get easy transitional power, which is body weight. Transferring your weight, Pete did so well. He'd be literally moving through the ball. That's what gave him his easy power. And then obviously aided what we famously call the Sampras snap, which is that big hip, and then he just almost dunk on that ball with that movement forward. So this is kind of a short video of how to unlock more power on your serve, serving a little bit old-fashioned, but it happens everywhere. A lot of the pros, all the pros have to get this to work, have that hip out and that transition of weight moving forward. So again, if you like this content and you hate the noise of basketballs bouncing on the floor, like this video. And if you feel really brave, come and subscribe and join the community of Performance Tennis Training, and we'd love to have you. So again, thank you so much, and I'll see you all in the near future. See you later. Bye.